It's a story whispered in playgrounds, shared in hushed tones by parents, and feared by an entire generation. A matte black vehicle with no markings, no license plates, and a sinister cargo. They call it the Black Ambulance. For decades, across Romania and Eastern Europe, rumors have swirled about children vanishing into thin air, victims of a shadow organization harvesting organs for the black market. It sounds like a horror movie plot, but the fear it caused was very real, leading to mass hysteria, police warnings, and even street justice. Is the Black Ambulance a terrifying reality lurking in the dark, or just a collective nightmare born from the echoes of the past? Today we're peeling back the tint. We're looking at the origins, the sightings, and the truth behind the legend that refused to die. Fasten your seatbelts. This is the mystery of the Black Ambulance. To understand the power of this myth, we must look behind the curtain of the Soviet bloc regimes, back to a period much darker than the 1960s. This fear was not a random occurrence. It was rooted in the Great Terror of the 1930s. At that time, the NKVD, the Soviet secret police, patrolled the streets in black Gaz M1 sedans, widely known by the nickname MK. In those years, the vehicle was also feared as the Chorny Voron, or the Black Raven. When a black raven idled in front of an apartment building at 2 a.m., it signaled an imminent arrest. The procedure was clinical and terrifying. 3 or 4 massive figures would emerge from the car, draped in long, black leather trench coats, the unofficial uniform of the secret police. They moved with a practiced, chilling silence. They would deliver a sharp, rhythmic knock on the victim's door, a sound that echoed through the quiet hallways. Once the door opened, the victim was given exactly 5 minutes to gather their most essential belongings. A change of clothes, perhaps a family photo, and nothing more. Within minutes, they were led away. The heavy door of the vehicle would slam shut, and the victim would vanish forever into the vast network of the Gulag, erased from their life and family. The most haunting part was the reaction of those nearby. Neighbors would listen through thin walls, hearts racing, yet no one dared to open a door or ask a single question. This was not a legend, but a brutal state reality that conditioned an entire population to associate a black car with absolute lethal power. Decades later, during the era of the Black Volga, the communist regimes understood a simple principle of social efficiency. With the exception of night shift workers or those with documented emergencies, the population was expected to stay indoors after 10 p.m. It was a method designed to maintain low crime rates and prevent any form of spontaneous political associations, a reality that is still mirrored today in North Korea. But the secret police realized a chilling truth. It was far more cost-effective to spread a terrifying rumor than to maintain patrols on every street corner. Why waste fuel and manpower to enforce a curfew when you can let fear do the work for you? By leveraging the historical trauma left by the NKVD and their black leather coats, the authorities allowed stories of a mysterious Black Volga to flourish. The myth was adapted for maximum impact. The car was said to be driven by shadowy figures who snatched pedestrians, particularly children, to harvest their blood. This resulted in the creation of a psychological cage. If parents believed that stepping outside after 10 p.m. meant their children might never return, they stayed inside by choice. Doors were locked and streets remained empty without the need for sirens, visible force, or mass arrests. The Black Volga proved that in a totalitarian system, a well-placed whisper in the dark can be a more powerful tool of control than 1,000 soldiers. The Volga wasn't just any car. It was the Gaz-24, a sleek, high-end Soviet limousine. In a world of gray concrete blocks and endless lines for basic everyday things such as bread, the Volga was the ultimate symbol of the elite and the ultimate predator. The legend added details that made your skin crawl. White rims that glowed in the dark, curtains drawn tight to hide the passengers, and most terrifyingly, some said it had no door handles on the inside. Rumors about who was behind the wheel varied. Some claimed it was driven by a priest or a nun, while others whispered it was the devil himself. The driver would stop passers-by to ask for directions before snatching them, primarily targeting innocent children. Supposedly, the car was a mobile blood transfusion station where victims' blood was harvested to treat wealthy patients suffering from leukemia. While the story is untrue, it stems from a real-life event. On April 3, 1965, the mysterious legend took over the streets of Warsaw when 2 women kidnapped Liliana Hensel, a 3-year-old girl. Although the police quickly captured the kidnappers and returned Liliana to her family, one specific detail ignited the public's imagination. During the investigation, a witness reported seeing the criminals and the child enter a cab, which happened to be a black Volga. Once the press released this detail, the seeds of the myth were planted, transforming a simple vehicle into a symbol of terror. After 1989, the black Volgas slowly faded from the streets, but the underlying paranoia didn't disappear. It simply found a new vessel. As the region moved into the digital age, the legend adapted to contemporary fears. By the late 2000s, the Soviet limousine was replaced in the collective imagination by something more practical and modern. A dark, unmarked van, often described as a private ambulance. The platform for these stories shifted as well. What used to be whispered in line at the grocery store was now being blasted across Facebook and WhatsApp. The core of the myth, however, remained almost identical to the 1960s version. Instead of taking blood for leukemia-wealthy patients, the antagonists were now harvesting organs for an international black market. This new version of the story proved to be just as dangerous as its predecessor. In cities like Bucharest, digital rumors led to actual street-level violence. Between 2010 and 2018, there were multiple documented incidents where legitimate medical teams or even regular citizens in dark vans were surrounded and threatened by angry crowds. People were convinced they had finally caught the organ snatchers they had read about online. These events showed that while the car had changed from a Volga to an ambulance, the psychological mechanism remained the same. It was no longer a fear of the secret police, but a deep-seated distrust of a fast-changing world, where a viral post could turn a neighbor into a vigilante in a matter of minutes. The supposed operation of the black ambulance was a dark mirror of the original Volga legend, updated with modern fears. It was often described as a rogue shadow entity. It was said to operate primarily under the cover of darkness, prowling the outskirts of residential neighborhoods or parking in the shadows behind apartment blocks. The vehicle itself was described as a black van. sometimes carrying improvised medical markings or extinguished sirens to avoid detection while maintaining a chillingly professional appearance. And the method of abduction remained consistent. The driver would pull over to ask a lone passerby, often a child, for directions or help. Once the victim was close enough, they were snatched and pulled inside. Inside the van, the legend claimed there was a fully equipped, clandestine surgical suite. The goal was simple: organ harvesting for a global black market. Legend says that after the clandestine surgery was over, the victim's body was returned to the place where she was allegedly kidnapped, along with an envelope of money, which represented some compensation for the family and a sign of gratitude for the donated organs. No such police reports ever actually existed. In the end, the stories of the Black Volga and the Black Ambulance are the architecture of a society's collective subconscious. But there is a detail that makes the original legend even more sinister. At the time, no one knew the truth. While parents were locking their doors in genuine paralyzed terror, they had no way of knowing they were likely part of a grand psychological experiment. Historians now suggest that these rumors weren't just random sparks of imagination, but weaponized silences. By never debunking the myth, the secret police let the fear do their work for them. A population that fears the shadows is a population that stays indoors, avoids strangers, and remains easy to control. This is how a simple rumor becomes a legend that spans generations. It doesn't survive because it's factual, but because it feels emotionally true. It fills the void left by a lack of trust in authority. When we don't know who to believe, we choose to believe the story that keeps us alert. The lesson for us today is profound. The vehicles change from Soviet limousines to dark digital vans, and the technology used to spread the whispers evolves. But the mechanism remains identical. As long as we choose to share fear instead of seeking facts, we continue to feed the same machine. The legend of the dark machine prowling the night will never truly die because it is a part of our own shadow. A reminder that the most dangerous thing isn't the driver of the car, but how quickly we are willing to believe the nightmare is real. If this story gave you a chill, don't let it fade into the shadows. Subscribe and hit the bell to join our next investigation. Drop a like to help us uncover more hidden legends. Stay curious and always watch your back.